Get up and shake it off. Quit acting like a baby, my father shouted as I lay completely still on the ground. My brother stood there smirking while my mom blamed me for ruining his birthday. But when the paramedic realized I couldn't move my legs, she instantly called for police backup. The MRI would reveal. Could you ever imagine the people who should love you most, your own family, standing by and watching you suffer, laughing even, as your world shatters beneath you? What if their callous indifference, their outright dismissal of your pain, pushed them across a line, from neglectful family to criminals? My name is Audrey and I'm 28, but I still remember that day like it was yesterday. The day my body went numb from the waist down. The day my brother, Jason, stood over me, his cruel laughter echoing in my ears as I lay motionless on the concrete. And my father? He just yelled, "Walk it off. Stop being a baby." My mother. She actually accused me of ruining Jason's birthday party. They had no idea, not a clue, that their dismissal of my agony, their refusal to see my suffering, would soon make them face criminal charges. If you've ever had your pain ignored by the very people who should care the most, you know that particular kind of wound. Stick around, because this is the story of the day my family's betrayal changed my life forever. Growing up in the Matthews household felt like walking on eggshells. From the outside, we were the picture of suburban perfection. A beautiful home in Massachusetts, a successful accountant father, a homemaker mother, and 2 kids who excelled in school. But, oh, how deceiving appearances can be. My father, Douglas Matthews, was a 6 feet 2 inches tower of stoicism. A man who truly believed showing emotion was a sign of weakness. He'd been raised by a military father who taught him pain was just weakness leaving the body, and he unfortunately passed those toxic beliefs down. Especially to his firstborn, my brother Jason. "Audrey, you need to toughen up," was my father's mantra. Scraped knee, broken heart, even a legitimate illness, his response was always the same: minimize, dismiss, move on. My mother, Eleanor, wasn't much better. She showed glimpses of nurturing sometimes, but her primary allegiance was always to my father and Jason. She was a nervous woman, perpetually afraid of upsetting the delicate balance of our household. If acknowledging my pain meant disrupting that balance, she'd choose denial every single time. "Your brother would never complain about something like that," she'd say, drawing these unfavorable comparisons that cut deeper than any physical wound. Then there was Jason, my older brother by 3 years, now 31. He was the golden child, the son who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. Athletic, charismatic, and incredibly manipulative, Jason learned early that he could get away with anything as long as he maintained his facade of perfection for our parents. I still remember when I was 7 and he was 10. He pushed me off my bike. I broke my wrist. When I cried to our parents, Jason claimed I'd just fallen on my own because I was clumsy. They believed him, without question. At the hospital, my father lectured me about being more careful, while my mother fretted about the medical bills. Not once did they even consider that Jason might be lying. This pattern, it just continued, throughout our childhood and even into our adult years. Jason would torment me with pranks that clearly crossed the line into cruelty. And our parents, they'd either ignore his behavior or, worse, blame me for provoking him. When I was 12, Jason locked me in our basement for hours during a thunderstorm, knowing I was terrified of the dark. When I finally escaped and confronted our parents, they accused me of making up stories for attention. At 16, he sabotaged my science project the night before it was due, causing me to fail the assignment. When I told my parents, they suggested I should have been more prepared. By the time I reached adulthood, I'd learned to keep my distance. I moved out at 18 for college in another state, coming home only for major holidays. I built a life, an elementary school teacher, friends who actually cared, and therapy to address the damage. But family ties are hard to sever completely. No matter how much I tried to create boundaries, guilt and obligation always pulled me back. Which is why, when my mother called, insisting I attend Jason's 31st birthday, I reluctantly agreed. It had been 6 months since I'd seen any of them, and part of me, a foolish part, hoped time and distance might have improved things. "It would mean so much to your brother if you came," my mother said, though I doubted Jason cared at all. "We're having a backyard barbecue. Your father's setting up the new pool deck. Everyone will be there." By everyone, she meant Jason's friends, most as obnoxious and entitled as he was. The thought of spending an afternoon with them made my stomach churn. But I'd run out of excuses. "Fine, I'll be there," I agreed, already regretting it. "Wonderful," she chirped. "And please, dress nicely. You know how important appearances are to your father." That stung. She knew I'd recently embraced a more casual style, ditching the preppy outfits for clothes that actually made me comfortable. It was a small act of rebellion, but in the Matthews household, even the smallest deviation was treated as a major transgression. As I hung up, I tried to mentally prepare. Go to the party, make small talk, give Jason a generic card with cash, and leave. I could handle one afternoon of discomfort if it meant several more months of peace. What I couldn't have known was that this birthday party would be the last time I would ever walk without assistance. That the casual cruelty would escalate to a point of no return. That my parents' refusal to take my pain seriously would cross the line from emotional neglect to criminal negligence. I packed an overnight bag, planning to stay at a hotel, not my childhood bedroom. Even that small boundary was important. A reminder I wasn't under their control anymore. I chose an outfit that would pass my father's inspection but still felt like me. Dark jeans, a blue blouse, comfortable flats. As I drove the 2 hours, I practiced my therapist techniques. Deep breathing, visualization, reminding myself I was an adult now, with the power to leave. But all the therapy in the world couldn't prepare me for what awaited me. No amount of deep breathing could prevent the catastrophe that was about to unfold or heal the physical and emotional scars that would follow. I arrived at precisely 2 p.m., timing my entrance to coincide with the start of the party. A deliberate strategy to minimize one-on-one interaction. In a crowd, I could blend in, avoid becoming their sole target. The driveway was already packed with expensive SUVs and sports cars belonging to Jason's friends. My mother greeted me with an air kiss and a quick once-over that told me my outfit had barely passed. "Audrey, you made it. Everyone's out back. Your brother just opened his presents." Of course, they'd started without me. A subtle reminder that my presence wasn't essential, merely tolerated. The living room was filled with expensive wrapped packages, golf clubs, designer clothing, and what looked like keys to a vehicle. "We got him that jet ski he's been wanting," my mother informed me proudly, gesturing to a photo on a box. "Your father's having it delivered next week." I nodded, feeling that familiar pang of inequity. For my 30th birthday, 6 months earlier, they'd sent a department store gift card. The disparity wasn't new, but it still hurt. I placed my own gift, a simple card with $200 inside, on the table and followed my mother to the backyard. The scene that greeted me was exactly what I'd expected. About 30 people, mostly men in their early 30s, drinking beer, lounging around the new pool deck. My father was at the grill, flipping burgers with the precision of a suburban king. Jason was holding court near the pool, surrounded by his entourage, beer in hand, gesturing animatedly, probably retelling some exaggerated tale. He'd gained weight since I'd last seen him, his once athletic frame showing the effects of too many late nights. When he spotted me, he broke away and approached with that artificial enthusiasm he reserved for distant acquaintances. "Little sis, you decided to grace us with your presence after all?" His words were friendly, but the gleam in his eyes was anything but warm. He pulled me into a hug that was too tight, too aggressive, a physical reminder of the power dynamic that had defined us for decades. "Happy birthday, Jason," I replied, extracting myself quickly. "The place looks great. Dad spent a fortune on that new deck," he said, gesturing to the custom-built Brazilian hardwood. "Cost him nearly $20,000. Again, the unspoken comparison hung in the air. Our parents would spare no expense for Jason, while my needs were always burdens. I excused myself for a drink, opting for water. I knew from experience I needed to keep my wits about me. For the next hour, I managed to avoid direct interaction by chatting with some of the other guests, a few spouses and girlfriends who seemed equally uncomfortable with the increasingly rowdy atmosphere. We formed a quiet alliance of outsiders. But as the afternoon wore on and the alcohol flowed, the energy shifted. Jason and his friends became louder, more obnoxious. They started reminiscing about high school, swapping stories that invariably involved humiliating someone they deemed beneath them. And then, inevitably, Jason turned his attention to me. "Hey, remember that time we convinced Audrey the neighbor's dog had rabies?" he called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. She was so scared she refused to go outside for a week. His friends laughed, and I felt my cheeks burn with that familiar mixture of embarrassment and anger. I was 8 years old when they did that. The fear had been real, the nightmares too. Or the time we switched her shampoo with hair removal cream. Tyler added, slapping his knee as if this act of cruelty was the height of comedy. That happened when I was 14. I had to wear hats to school for weeks while my hair grew back in patches. My parents, they just told me to stop being so dramatic. I took a deep breath, gathering my things. I'd reached my limit. No amount of family obligation was worth this humiliation. But as I turned to leave, Jason intercepted me. Leaving so soon? The party's just getting started. His words were slurred, his eyes unfocused. He was drunk, which always made him more unpredictable, more dangerous. I have a long drive back, I said firmly, trying to step around him. But Jason blocked my path. Come on, sis. Loosen up. Have a drink with us. For old time's sake. I knew this routine. The forced camaraderie that would inevitably lead to some form of public humiliation. I'd fallen for it too many times. No thanks, Jason. I really need to go. His face hardened, the mask of friendliness slipping to reveal the cruelty beneath. Still the same uptight Audrey. Some things never change. I walked away, heading toward the sliding glass door. I just needed to grab my purse, say a quick goodbye to my parents, and escape. But fate, or perhaps Jason's malice, had other plans. To reach the house, I needed to cross a section of the new pool deck. As I stepped onto the wooden boards, I immediately sensed something was wrong. The surface felt strangely slick beneath my flats. I glanced down and noticed a slight sheen, almost imperceptible unless you were looking for it. In that moment, I knew what was about to happen. But it was already too late. My foot slid forward, violently, throwing me off balance. I tried to catch myself, arms flailing, but the slipperiness was too complete, too deliberate. My other foot shot out from under me, and I felt my body falling backward. Time seemed to slow. I could see Jason and his friends watching, their expressions a mixture of anticipation and cruel amusement. I saw my father turning from the grill, my mother pausing in conversation. And then came the impact. Not with the wooden deck as I'd expected, but with the concrete lip of the pool. My lower back and head struck simultaneously. A double blow that sent shooting pain up my spine and exploded like fireworks behind my eyes. I heard someone scream, and only later would I realize it had come from me. The world tilted and spun, colors blurring as my vision swam. When things finally stabilized, I was flat on my back, staring up at the clear blue sky. The pain in my head was excruciating, but what terrified me more was what I couldn't feel. Anything below my waist. Help! I gasped, my voice barely audible. The impact had knocked the wind out of me. Please help me. I can't feel my legs. The first face that appeared in my field of vision was Jason's. He was looming over me. And to my horror, he was smiling. Nice pratfall. Very dramatic. He turned to his friends. She always was a theater kid. I tried to move, to sit up, but my body wouldn't cooperate. My arms worked, but when I attempted to shift my legs, there was nothing. No response. No sensation. Just a terrifying void where the lower half of my body should have been. I'm serious, I said, my voice stronger now, edged with panic. Something is wrong. I can't move my legs. I think I hit my back on the concrete. Jason rolled his eyes, still convinced this was some kind of performance. Come on, get up. You're embarrassing yourself. I can't get up. I was crying now, tears of pain and fear streaming down my face. Please call an ambulance. I think I'm really hurt. By this point, a small crowd had gathered. I could see curiosity and discomfort on their faces, but no one was moving to help. They were taking their cues from Jason, assuming this was just another family drama playing out. My father pushed through the onlookers, his face a mask of irritation. What's going on here, Audrey? Why are you on the ground? Dad! I sobbed, relief washing over me. Surely he would take this seriously. I slipped and fell. I hit my back on the pool edge. I can't feel my legs. I need to go to the hospital. I expected concern, urgency, immediate action. What I got instead was a dismissive scoff. For God's sake, Audrey, the deck is perfectly safe. I just had it installed by professionals. He gestured impatiently. Walk it off. Stop being a baby. You're making a scene at your brother's party. The words hit me like a physical blow. Even now, even when I was literally unable to move, my pain was being dismissed, my experience invalidated. Douglas, maybe we should help her up, my mother suggested, appearing at his side. But her concern wasn't for my well-being. People are watching. I can't get up, I repeated, my voice rising with desperation. I need an ambulance. Please, Mom. Dad. I'm begging you. Something is seriously wrong. My mother knelt beside me, her voice lowered to an angry whisper. Audrey Matthews, that is enough. You have always been jealous of your brother's attention, but this is taking things too far. You are ruining his birthday party with this performance. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The pain in my back was intensifying, radiating outward in waves. My head was throbbing, and I was starting to feel nauseated. I think I'm going to be sick, I moaned. She's probably drunk, I heard Jason tell someone. Classic Audrey, can't handle her alcohol. I hadn't had a single drink all day, but facts had never mattered in my family's narrative about me. The sun beating down on my face made the nausea worse. I was sweating profusely, and a strange tingling sensation had started in my fingertips. I knew these were bad signs. Please, I whispered, no longer having the energy to shout. I need help. My father had walked away, returning to the grill as if nothing was happening. My mother was making excuses to the guests, telling them I'd always been prone to episodes. Jason had lost interest, moving back to his friends, who were now loudly discussing plans to take the new jet ski out. I was alone, immobile, in agony, surrounded by people who were choosing to ignore my suffering. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain ever could. Then, from the edge of my fading consciousness, I heard a new voice. Firm. Authoritative. Female. Excuse me, I'm a nurse. Let me through, please. The crowd parted, and a woman I didn't recognize knelt beside me. She had kind eyes and capable hands that immediately went to my wrist, checking my pulse. Hi there, I'm Rachel. I work in the ER at Massachusetts General. Can you tell me your name? Audrey, I managed to say through chattering teeth. I was cold now, despite the summer heat. Okay, Audrey, I need you to stay very still. Can you tell me what happened? I explained the fall, the impact, the immediate loss of sensation. Rachel's expression remained neutral, but I could see concern in her eyes. She leaned closer and spoke quietly. I'm going to check a few things, but I don't want you to move at all. Okay. She gently pressed her fingers against points on my legs, asking if I could feel the pressure. I couldn't. She asked me to wiggle my toes. Nothing happened. I'm calling an ambulance, she announced, pulling out her phone. She doesn't need an ambulance, my mother protested, suddenly reappearing. She just needs to get up and stop making a fuss. Rachel fixed my mother with a level stare. Ma'am, your daughter has signs consistent with a spinal cord injury. Moving her could cause permanent damage. She needs emergency medical attention immediately. For the first time, a flicker of real concern crossed my mother's face. Spinal cord injury? That's impossible. She just slipped. Falls are one of the most common causes of spinal injuries, Rachel replied, already dialing 911. And from what I can see, she hit the concrete edge, quite hard. As Rachel spoke with the dispatcher, describing my condition, I saw my father approaching. His expression had shifted from annoyance to apprehension. What is all this about an ambulance? He demanded. Rachel, still on the phone, held up a hand. After giving the dispatcher the necessary info, she turned to him. Sir, your daughter has potentially suffered a serious spinal injury. Paramedics will be here in about 10 minutes. Until then, it is absolutely crucial that she not be moved. My father's face paled. For the first time, I think he was beginning to realize this wasn't an act. This was real, and it was serious. How did this happen? He asked, looking around as if searching for someone to blame. The deck was slippery, I said through the fog of pain. Like it had oil or something on it. My father's eyes narrowed. That's ridiculous. I just had it sealed yesterday. It shouldn't be slippery at all. But Rachel, ever observant, was already examining the wooden boards. She touched the surface, then rubbed her fingers together. This is not water, she said, her voice hardening. This feels like some kind of lubricant. All eyes turned to Jason, who had wandered back over. His face, flushed from alcohol, suddenly drained of color. "It was just a joke," he muttered, not meeting anyone's gaze. "Just a little prank. I put some of Dad's deck oil on a few boards. I thought she would slip a little and maybe fall in the pool. I didn't think." He trailed off, the implications of his actions finally seeming to dawn on him. The silence that followed was deafening. In that moment, as I lay immobile on the ground, I saw the truth of my family reflected in their faces. The casual cruelty that had defined our relationships, the willful blindness to the harm they caused, the reflexive protection of Jason at all costs. But this time, there would be consequences they couldn't ignore away. In the distance, I heard sirens approaching. The wailing sirens grew louder, cutting through the stunned silence. Rachel remained by my side. "Try to stay calm," she said softly. "Help is almost here. Just focus on your breathing." I was trying, but panic threatened to overwhelm me. The numbness in my lower body was terrifying. Each breath sent new waves of pain. The party guests dispersed, some already leaving. My mother hovered, her earlier dismissiveness replaced by nervous energy. "Do you really think this is necessary?" she asked Rachel. "Maybe we could just take her to urgent care ourselves?" Rachel's response was firm. "Absolutely not. She needs proper immobilization. Any improper movement could worsen a spinal injury." My father had gone to the front to direct the paramedics. Jason stood frozen, the reality of what he'd done finally sinking in. Paramedics arrived with remarkable efficiency. Rachel immediately briefed them. The lead paramedic, Sarah, knelt beside me. "Hello, Audrey. I'm Sarah. We're going to take good care of you. Can you tell me where the pain is worst?" "My lower back," I managed, "and my head. But I can't feel anything below my waist." Sarah nodded. "We're going to put a cervical collar on you to stabilize your neck. Then we'll carefully log roll you onto a backboard. It's important you don't try to help us move, okay? Just stay as still as possible." As they worked, Sarah asked questions. Rachel filled in details. Then Sarah asked a question that changed everything. "Was the surface where you fell naturally slippery, or was there something on it that caused you to slip?" Before I could answer, Rachel spoke up. "There appears to be some kind of oil or lubricant on the deck boards. I believe it was placed there deliberately." Sarah looked up sharply. "Deliberately? Can you elaborate?" "Her brother admitted to putting deck oil on the boards as a prank," Rachel said, her voice level but with an undercurrent of anger. "He intended for her to slip." Sarah and the other paramedics exchanged glances. Then Sarah turned to look at Jason, who was staring at the ground. "Sir, is that accurate? Did you intentionally create a slipping hazard that caused this injury?" Jason shifted uncomfortably. "It was just supposed to be a joke. I didn't think she'd get hurt like this." Sarah's expression hardened. "Mike, can you check the deck surface and document what you find, please?" Mike moved to examine the area, taking photos, collecting a sample. The paramedics continued methodically to immobilize me. They placed a rigid collar around my neck, then positioned themselves to roll me as a unit onto the backboard. "On my count," Sarah instructed. 1, 2, 3. They moved me with practiced precision, but despite their care, the movement sent fresh agony through my body. I cried out. "I know it hurts," Sarah said sympathetically. "We'll give you something for the pain as soon as we have you secured." Once strapped to the backboard, they transferred me to the stretcher. Sarah placed an oxygen mask over my face and inserted in 4. "Your blood pressure is quite low," she noted, frowning at the monitor. "And your heart rate is elevated. We need to get you to the hospital right away." My mother finally seemed to grasp the severity. "Is she going to be all right?" she asked, her voice small. Sarah didn't offer false reassurance. "She has signs consistent with a significant spinal injury. The sooner we get her to a trauma center, the better her chances for recovery." As they prepared to move me to the ambulance, Mike returned from inspecting the deck. He spoke quietly to Sarah, showing her something on his camera screen. Her expression grew even more serious. "Based on what I'm seeing here, and the circumstances described, I'm going to request police assistance," she announced. "Police?" My father sputtered, returning from the front. "Surely that's not necessary. This was just an unfortunate accident." Sarah fixed him with a level gaze. "Sir, deliberately creating a hazardous condition that results in serious injury is not just an accident. Additionally, I understand there was a delay in seeking medical attention for your daughter despite her reporting loss of sensation, which is a medical emergency. My father's face flushed with anger. Now, wait just a minute. You can't come into my home and make accusations like that. Dad, I said weakly from behind the oxygen mask. Please, just let them help me. For once, my father fell silent. Sarah made a call on her radio, requesting police presence. Then she turned back to me. We're going to move you to the ambulance now. The ride might be uncomfortable, but we'll do everything we can to keep you stable. As they wheeled me through the house and out to the waiting ambulance, I caught a final glimpse of my family. My father arguing with Mike, gesturing angrily. My mother standing with her arms wrapped around herself, looking lost. And Jason, still rooted to the same spot, watching as the consequences of his lifelong cruelty finally caught up with him. The last thing I saw before the ambulance doors closed was a police cruiser pulling into the driveway, lights flashing but sirens silent. In that moment, despite the pain and fear, I felt a strange sense of validation. For the first time in my life, someone was taking my suffering seriously. The ambulance pulled away, carrying me toward an uncertain future, but also, finally, away from the toxic environment that had caused me so much pain. As the medication began to take effect, dulling the worst of the physical agony, I closed my eyes and surrendered. I awoke to the rhythmic beeping of hospital monitors and that universal antiseptic smell. For a moment, I was disoriented. Then the memories flooded back. The fall, the numbness, the paramedics, the police. A nurse, Carlos, noticed I was awake. Welcome back, Audrey. You're at Massachusetts General. Do you remember what happened? I fell, I said, my voice raspy. At my brother's birthday party. I couldn't feel my legs. Carlos nodded. That's right. You've been in and out of consciousness for about 12 hours. The doctor will be in shortly. What's wrong with me? I asked, fear making my voice tremble. Can I still not move my legs? Carlos's expression was compassionate. The doctor will explain everything. Try to stay calm. As if on cue, Dr. Martinez, a neurosurgeon, entered. Good morning, Audrey. I'm Dr. Martinez. How are you feeling? Scared, I admitted, and in pain. What happened to me? Why can't I feel my legs? Dr. Martinez pulled up a chair. When you fell, you suffered what we call an incomplete spinal cord injury at the T12, L1 section in your lower back. The impact fractured 2 vertebrae and caused significant compression of your spinal cord. She showed me MRI images, pointing out the damaged areas. We performed emergency surgery to remove bone fragments and reduce the pressure. We also stabilized your spine with rods and screws. Will I walk again? I asked, the question that had been terrifying me. Dr. Martinez didn't offer false hope, but she didn't extinguish it entirely. Spinal cord injuries are complex. The fact that yours is an incomplete injury is positive. It means the cord wasn't completely severed. She explained that we'd get a clearer picture in the coming weeks. So I might be paralyzed forever. The words felt surreal. I wouldn't use the term forever at this stage, she replied carefully. But yes, you are currently experiencing paraplegia, which is paralysis affecting the lower limbs. We will work with you to maximize whatever recovery is possible, but you should be prepared for the possibility of long-term mobility challenges. The news hit me like a physical blow. I had entered my brother's birthday party a healthy 28-year-old woman, and I was leaving it with a life-altering disability. All because of a prank and my family's refusal to take my pain seriously. There's something else we need to discuss, Dr. Martinez said, her tone shifting. The circumstances of your injury have prompted an investigation. There are 2 police officers waiting to speak with you. I closed my eyes. My brother put oil on the deck. He admitted it. He wanted me to slip as a joke. Dr. Martinez nodded. That's consistent with the information we received. And there seems to be some concern about the delay in seeking medical attention for you. My parents didn't believe I was really hurt, I said, the familiar pain of their dismissal washing over me again. They told me to walk it off. They accused me of ruining Jason's party. A flash of something, anger perhaps, crossed Dr. Martinez's professional demeanor. In cases of suspected spinal cord injury, immediate immobilization and medical attention are crucial. Delays can significantly worsen the outcome. Are you saying that if they had called an ambulance right away, I might not be paralyzed? The implications were almost too much to bear. "It's impossible to say with certainty," she replied carefully. "But yes, generally, the sooner a spinal cord injury is treated, the better the prognosis. Every minute counts." Tears spilled down my cheeks. The injury itself was devastating, but knowing it might have been less severe if my family had simply believed me was an additional layer of betrayal I wasn't prepared for. "I'll talk to them," I decided. "I want them to know what happened." The police officers, Detective Sullivan and Officer Chen, entered. They were both women, which somehow made me feel safer. "We understand this is difficult," Detective Sullivan said, "but we need to ask you some questions." I recounted everything. "So, to be clear," Detective Sullivan clarified, "after you fell and reported that you couldn't feel or move your legs, no one called for medical assistance." "Not until Rachel, the nurse, intervened," I confirmed. "That was at least 15 or 20 minutes after my fall. My father told me to walk it off, and my mother accused me of trying to ruin Jason's birthday." Officer Chin looked up from her notes. "And your brother admitted to putting oil on the deck?" "Yes. He said it was supposed to be a prank. He thought I'd slip and fall into the pool. He didn't think I'd hit the concrete edge." The officers exchanged glances. "We should inform you," Detective Sullivan said, "that we have already taken statements from several witnesses, including the nurse, Rachel Cooper, and the paramedics. We have also collected evidence from the deck, which confirmed the presence of deck oil." She paused, then continued, "Your brother, Jason Matthews, was taken into custody last night on charges of reckless endangerment, resulting in serious bodily harm. Your parents, Douglas and Eleanor Matthews, are currently being investigated for negligence and failure to provide necessary medical assistance." The news stunned me. As much as my family had hurt me, I'd never imagined them facing criminal charges. "They could go to jail?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "That will be up to the district attorney and ultimately the courts," Detective Sullivan replied. "But yes, these are serious charges, especially given the severity of your injuries." After a few more questions, they left, promising to keep me updated. I lay there, trying to process everything. The physical reality of my injury was overwhelming enough, but the legal and emotional implications were staggering. No one from my family had called or visited. I wondered if they were legally prevented from contacting me, or if they were simply continuing their lifelong pattern of avoiding accountability. As evening fell, a hospital social worker, Marcus, came to see me. He explained he'd help coordinate my care, rehabilitation, and resources. "You're looking at a significant recovery period," he told me gently. "After you're stable, you'll likely need several weeks in an inpatient rehab facility, followed by ongoing outpatient therapy." "I live alone," I said, the practical implications suddenly hitting me. "My apartment has stairs. I teach elementary school, which means being on my feet all day." Marcus nodded. "These are all challenges we'll help you navigate. It's a lot to take in right now, I know." Indeed it was. In 24 hours, every aspect of my life had been upended. My body, my home, my career, my family relationships, all transformed in ways I was only beginning to comprehend. That night, alone in my hospital room, I cried for everything I'd lost and everything that now lay uncertain before me. But beneath the grief and fear, a small spark of determination began to glow. I had survived my family's lifelong emotional abuse. Somehow, I would survive this too. And for the first time, they would face consequences for their actions. The weeks following my injury passed in a blur of medical procedures, pain management, and the first tentative steps toward rehabilitation. I remained in the hospital for 14 days, during which the full extent of my injury became clearer. Dr. Martinez explained that while surgery had stabilized my spine, there was significant damage that would take time to heal, if it healed at all. "You have what we call an Asia C classification," she told me. "This means you have preserved some motor function below the level of injury, but it's not strong enough to be functional. You also have some sensory preservation, which is a positive sign." I had begun to regain some sensation in my thighs and occasional tingling in my lower legs, which the medical team considered encouraging. However, I still had no voluntary movement below my knees and minimal strength in my hip and thigh muscles. The physical recovery was challenging enough, but the legal proceedings added another layer of complexity. 10 days after my injury, I received a visit from Laura Jensen, an assistant district attorney. The police investigation is complete, she informed me. Based on the evidence and witness statements, we have filed formal charges against your brother and parents. Jason was facing a felony charge of reckless endangerment, resulting in serious bodily harm, carrying a potential sentence of up to 10 years in prison. My parents were charged with criminal negligence and failure to provide necessary medical assistance, which could result in up to 5 years of incarceration each if convicted. Of course, these are maximum penalties, Laura explained. Actual sentences would depend on many factors, including whether they accept responsibility by pleading guilty. She also informed me I had the right to file a civil lawsuit for damages. Medical expenses for spinal cord injuries can run into the millions over a lifetime, she said. Not to mention lost wages, pain and suffering, home modifications, specialized equipment, and ongoing care needs. It was overwhelming to think about. Part of me wanted nothing more to do with my family, to simply cut all ties. But the practical reality was that I was facing enormous financial challenges as a result of their actions. Laura put me in touch with Michael Greenberg, a personal injury attorney. He visited me, explaining the process. Your case is strong, he told me. The liability is clear, especially with your brother's admission. He said my parents' homeowner's insurance would cover some damages, but for full compensation, they'd need to go after their personal assets. The thought made me uncomfortable. Despite everything, these were still my parents. But as Michael gently pointed out, my new reality would include extensive medical bills and potential lifelong care needs. This isn't about revenge, he assured me. It's about ensuring you have the resources you need to live as full and independent a life as possible. I agreed to let him file the lawsuit, a decision that felt both necessary and heartbreaking. Meanwhile, my physical recovery continued. After 2 weeks in acute care, I was transferred to a specialized spinal cord injury rehabilitation center. My primary physical therapist, David, combined unwavering optimism with pragmatic realism. Our goal is to maximize whatever return of function you experience, he explained. But equally important is learning to be as independent as possible with the function you have right now. Days at rehab were demanding, mornings of physical therapy, afternoons of occupational therapy. There were group sessions, where I met others with SCI. One was Tara, who'd been injured in a car accident. It gets easier, she told me one evening. Not the physical stuff necessarily, though that does improve with time. I mean, the emotional adjustment. Right now, everything in your life is defined by your injury. Eventually, it becomes just one aspect of who you are, not your entire identity. Her words gave me hope. There were good days, when I stood between parallel bars. There were setbacks, infections, moments of despair. Throughout this time, I received no contact from my family. My attorney informed me they'd been instructed not to communicate with me. Part of me was relieved. Another part felt the absence as yet another abandonment. Friends and colleagues stepped in, visiting, bringing meals, setting up a fundraising campaign. 3 months after my injury, the criminal cases against my family moved toward resolution. Jason accepted a plea deal, admitting to felony reckless endangerment in exchange for a 5-year sentence, 2 years in prison, 3 on probation. My parents also took plea agreements, receiving 2 years of probation and 400 hours of community service each, along with mandatory counseling. The civil case took longer. Michael, my attorney, deposed each family member, collecting their sworn testimony. The process was grueling but necessary, forcing them to acknowledge, under oath, what they'd done. 6 months after filing, we reached a settlement. My parents' homeowner's insurance paid out its maximum liability of $1 million. Additionally, my parents agreed to sell their house and liquidate a significant portion of their retirement savings to create a trust fund of an additional $2 million for my ongoing care needs. It was a substantial sum, enough to cover immediate expenses, make my apartment accessible, and provide a financial cushion. But no amount of money could restore what I had lost, physically or emotionally. By the 8-month mark, I had made what my medical team considered remarkable progress. I had regained some function in my leg muscles, enough that with specialized braces and a walker, I could take short, labored steps. It wasn't true walking, not the easy, unconscious movement I'd taken for granted, but it was more than many with similar injuries ever achieved. I was discharged from inpatient rehab, continuing with outpatient therapy. I moved back to my apartment, now modified with ramps and an accessible bathroom. A part-time caregiver helped. I also began reimagining my professional life. Classroom teaching wasn't feasible, but the school district offered me a position as a curriculum specialist, a role I could perform largely from home. Throughout this period, I was engaged in another kind of healing, working with a therapist named Claire. What happened to you wasn't just a physical injury, Claire pointed out. It was the culmination of a lifetime of emotional abuse and neglect. The paralysis in your legs is visible, but there are other invisible wounds that need healing too. With her guidance, I processed not just the trauma of the injury, but the deeper patterns of family dysfunction. Your family failed you in the most fundamental way, Claire said. They had one job, to protect you. Instead, they caused you harm and then refused to acknowledge it. Acknowledging this truth was painful but ultimately liberating. It allowed me to see that my injury, devastating as it was, had also freed me from the toxic family system. Do you think you'll ever reconcile with them? Claire asked. I considered it. I don't know. Part of me thinks there's no coming back. Another part wonders if these legal consequences might finally force them to confront reality. Either way, she said, your healing doesn't depend on their acknowledgement. It's something you do for yourself. And slowly, painstakingly, that's what I began to do. Heal not just my body, but my sense of self. As I approached the 1-year anniversary, I received an unexpected letter. From Jason. From prison. It sat unopened for 3 days. Inside was a lengthy, handwritten apology, the first genuine one I'd ever received from him. He wrote about his therapy, confronting who he'd been. He made no excuses. I understand if you never want to hear from me again, he concluded. I wouldn't blame you, but I wanted you to know that I'm truly sorry for the pain I have caused you. Not just on that day, but throughout our lives. You deserved so much better. The letter left me with complicated feelings. It seemed sincere, but I wasn't ready to let him back into my life, if I ever would be. Still, there was a certain closure in finally having my experiences acknowledged. My parents never reached out directly. I heard through mutual acquaintances that they'd moved to Florida, telling a sanitized version of events to their new community. But their narrative no longer had power over me. I'd learned my truth doesn't require their acknowledgement to be valid. My pain doesn't need their recognition to be real. This has been, perhaps, the most profound lesson of my journey. I've also learned about the true meaning of family. It's not defined by blood, but by who shows up when you're most vulnerable. By who stays when staying gets difficult. My chosen family has grown over these 2 years. Sarah, the paramedic. Rachel, the nurse. David, my physical therapist. Claire, my trauma therapist. And now Thomas, a physical therapist specializing in neurological injuries. Our professional relationship gradually evolved into friendship, and more recently, a tentative romance. He sees me for who I am. With him, I'm learning what healthy love feels like, built on respect and genuine care. Last month, I completed my master's degree in educational psychology, specializing in trauma-informed teaching practices. Next fall, I'll begin a new position as a consultant for the school district, training educators to recognize and support children experiencing trauma. It feels like a way of honoring my own journey, of creating meaning from the pain. Perhaps that is the ultimate form of healing, not erasing the wound, but transforming it into something that serves a purpose greater than oneself. My paralysis will always be part of my story, as will the family dynamics that contributed to it. But neither defines the entirety of who I am or what my life can mean. Sometimes, when I'm with Thomas, or surrounded by friends, laughing and fully present, I realize with a start that I am happy, not despite what happened, but in a way that incorporates it into a larger narrative of resilience and growth. Other times, usually late at night, when pain keeps me awake, I still struggle with anger and grief for what was taken from me. The physical abilities I lost. The family relationships that, even if toxic, represented my primary attachments for 28 years. The sense of safety in the world that may never fully return. But even in those dark moments, I am no longer alone with my pain. I have learned to reach out, to allow myself to be vulnerable, to accept help without shame, to acknowledge my limitations without being defined by them. If there is wisdom to be gained from trauma, perhaps it is this, that our wounds shape us, but they need not determine us. That even the deepest betrayals can become catalysts for profound transformation. That sometimes it takes being broken to discover just how much strength we contain. I don't know what the future holds. My doctors say I may continue to see small improvements, but the most significant gains typically occur in the first 2 years. I may walk more easily someday, or I may not. Either way, I will continue to build a life that accommodates my reality while stretching the boundaries of what seems possible. What I do know is that I am no longer the woman who entered that birthday party 2 years ago, desperate for approval from people incapable of truly seeing me. I am someone new, forged in the crucible of trauma and recovery. Stronger in the broken places, as Hemingway wrote. More authentic, more compassionate, more aware of both my vulnerability and my power. And that, perhaps, is the most unexpected gift to emerge from this ordeal. The discovery of a self worth fighting for, worth believing in, worth loving. If you're watching this and find yourself in a situation where your pain is dismissed, where your reality is denied by those who should protect you, please know that you deserve better. Your experiences are valid, your suffering matters, and there are people in this world who will see you truly, if you can find the courage to reach beyond those who refuse to. Have you ever had your pain dismissed by someone who should have believed you? How did you find the strength to trust yourself when others wouldn't? Tell me what you think. I really want to know. Thanks for watching. Take care.